I'm Dr. Melissa Longo. Welcome to Everyday Rockstar Moms, where every episode I'll interview moms just like you who are rocking it in their homes, raising their children, managing their households, building their careers, working on their relationships, dealing with challenges, finding success, trying to find balance, and themselves along the way. Every episode you'll hear from women just like you of all ages and stages of motherhood, sharing their stories, life experiences, and leaving you with practical tips, ideas, and inspiration to help you rock your life. Hey Shannon, welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. I'm so glad that you're here tonight because if this interview is half as entertaining as our little pre-chat was, I think it's going to be a great show today. I've known you for quite some time. Perhaps you can start by just telling our listeners a little bit about yourself, where you're at right now with your career, with your marriage, with your kids.
Sure. So I am the mom of two children, a 5.5-year-old son and an 8.5 going on 15-year-old daughter. And I am working full-time as a director of brand experience for a creative agency, which keeps me quite busy. And I am celebrating 10 years of marriage to my husband in just a few months. So very exciting milestone for us. And yeah, that's a good little snapshot there.
That is a good little snapshot. So you and Sean celebrating a 10-year anniversary. So you had some time together before you had kids.
Yes. So we actually met working together, which was a great way for us to get to know each other. And we spent a lot of time together, not quantity, not a lot of years, but we got to work together for a few years. And then we built a house in Collingwood and then decided to get married shortly after that. And then quickly after we got married, Addison arrived.
And then life changed forever.
And then the roller coaster began.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do you guys, keep that spark alive in your marriage? How do you make time for each other when you've both got growing careers and two growing children?
Well, definitely we are both very busy. My husband's in banking, so that's a pretty demanding job. And I think it's about trying to stay connected during the day. We try to call or send notes to each other when we have a chance. We also make sure that at the end of each day, we spend a few minutes just connecting with each other. And most recently, we carved off some time to do a trip with each other. We just spent 10 days in Hawaii with each other because we knew that we'd been really busy and we needed that time to reconnect and just spend some time, the two of us.
So you fit it in where you can with a busy family.
Yes, we don't have a recipe. I wish I was one of those people that said, well, we make discipline to do date night once a week, or, we've never really been able to do that just because of how busy things are. But over the span of our marriage, we make sure that we find time for each other. So a number of years ago, we took skating lessons together. Neither of us knew how to skate, so we decided to do that. We occasionally get a babysitter and go mountain biking together. So we don't always do the traditional go out for dinner. We try to do what we love the most, which is being active together. And so we've been a little bit more creative about what that time looks like and making sure that when we do spend time, it's doing what we want to do, playing squash or even just going for walks together.
Yeah, and I'm sure your kids are now growing up seeing that's part of what healthy adult relationships should be like.
Yes, they weren't too keen on the fact that we were going to Hawaii without them, but they got a trampoline as a consolation prize, so then they were easily bought off on that one.
Yeah. So you talked about motherhood being a roller coaster. Let's talk about that. How did it shape your world from the minute Addison was born?
I think it's I wasn't expecting with being a mother how much you start thinking about this little being and how all-encompassing it is. From the moment you find out that you're pregnant, you really start thinking about everything you're eating and everything you're exposed to and what you're doing to stay physically fit. And so it really changes your brain space. And so I would say that's probably been the biggest surprise of parenting that I wasn't considering before I became a mother. And so I think when your kids are young, you can read a lot of books about what they need, how to toilet train and what to do when they don't sleep. And then as your kids start getting a little bit older, there's no books about what happens when your kid doesn't make the skipping team, or, what do you do when your child doesn't get invited to a birthday party? And those things just get a little bit more complicated and require a little bit more thinking, different approach, right?
Yeah, we were talking during the pre-chat about an old book club that we both used to be part of. And one of the women in that book club, I remember saying to me, because her children are probably about 5 years older than my boys, that as your kids get older, you move away from being a caregiver to a life coach, because you're trying to help them navigate all these different experiences. They don't need us to change their diapers or toilet train them anymore, but they need us to help them understand emotional hurts and how to be polite and how to be well-mannered and how to get their schoolwork done on time and all these other life skills that we need to teach them.
And to me, that seems harder because you don't always know how to respond, and you can't predict when these things are happening. I referenced the skipping club example. I didn't even know she was trying out for the skipping club. I didn't even know that was on her consideration. And you can't also underestimate how important it is to your child when they come home from school and share that with you. And really at that moment, you have to drop everything and immediately try to understand what happened and why they're upset. And you realize there's not really much you can do in those situations. And it's part of growing up. And it's so, so hard to let them see them navigate those experiences.
Well, we don't want to see our kids go through anything difficult, but we all know that that is how we learn things sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So who do you turn to in those moments? I mean, do you have some strong influences as far as who you are as a mother? Like if you're having a moment where you're like, I don't know how to deal with this, do you talk to Sean? Do you talk to friends? Do you talk to family members?
Definitely Sean and I are a united force, and I'm not sure how people parented before text message, because there's many times where I'll send him a text, heads up, this is what's going on. What do you think we should do? And, we often consult each other on how we approach things and make sure that we're on the same page. And I don't think there's any surefire answers. And, one of the other things that Sean and I have found as parents too, is that the way that Addison needs to be parented is totally different than the way our son needs to be parented. And that's been a learning experience for us as well, that you don't realize before you're a parent that you can't just be a parent, that each of your child needs you in different ways.
Yeah, that's interesting that you bring that up. I had a close girlfriend share that with me last week, that she was finding it really difficult to parent her two children because she felt that she had to be someone different for each child. And I don't know if I've ever had that experience with my boys. I mean, they have different personalities and different interests, but can you talk a little bit more about that, what that feels like for you?
Sure. Well, I would say for Addison, she's very introverted and sensitive, and me not being introverted, that's been a learning curve to really respect and understand what she needs in different situations, and trying to help her navigate that. And then my son, on the other hand, is very much like me, very extroverted, and trying to help tone that down a little bit. He just looks at life very differently. And I think he summed it up very, very interesting with this whole skipping team example. He said to Addison, in his 5-year-old wisdom, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. You just have to package it up and move on. That just says a lot about him. He looks at things very matter of fact, but she's much more emotional. So I think it's just learning how to navigate those emotions.
Well, it keeps it interesting. and lots of laughs in your family, I'm sure.
Yes, for sure.
What's the biggest challenge you have these days parenting, or the biggest one that you've had so far?
The biggest challenge I've had so far is, I would say, I balance a very busy work life. I also have a lot of personal goals that I set for myself. Physical fitness is very important for me. I volunteer and all the things I want to do with my children. And probably about a year and a half ago was my biggest parenting setback. I was traveling down to Dominican Republic for a short work trip and ended up getting a mosquito-borne virus called chikungunya, which represents itself like rheumatoid arthritis. And that was a big setback for me, just because it was a mosquito virus from another country, and a lot of the doctors in this area didn't know about it, and they weren't sure how to help me. And because the way that the virus represented itself as rheumatoid arthritis, you couldn't actually see that there was anything wrong with me. And, versus when someone breaks their leg, and it's very easy to see that there's something wrong with them. And so having to really learn that I couldn't do everything I wanted to do, and that I wasn't sure how long I was going to be experiencing that, that was a big setback for me, because as a family, the way we define ourselves and the way we spend our spare time is skiing and biking and running and walking and exploring and all those things. And I really couldn't do those things for probably close to 10 months. And before I started feeling better, and it really helped me look at quality time and look at my own work-life balance much differently as I worked through that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what got you through that?
A friend of mine who has experienced similar rheumatoid arthritis type symptoms, but from something else, said to me, you only have so many, she used the expression, spoons each day. And once you use them up, that's it. And so you have to think about the fact that you're not going to be able to do everything that you want to do. And you need to look for help, and you need to reach out to people who can help you through this time. And that really, it seems strange, but that really was what helped me realize that I needed to slow down and look at work and motherhood and trying to do everything, and realizing that you can't when you're going through an experience like that. And also learning how to ask for help. That wasn't something that I'd ever done before. And that was an interesting moment for me, where I really did have to reach out and look for other people to help me through that time.
You know what I love about these podcasts and these interviews is that there is such similarity between the comments and the feedback that I get from them. So many women have talked about realizing that they need a support team. They need to ask for help, and being okay not being the one to do everything. Because I think that's something that we sometimes struggle with. Like, well, we should have it all together. We should be able to do all these things. And sometimes we just can't. Yeah,
it's true. And I think for me, now that I'm feeling better, I still struggle with what I am supposed to have learned from that experience, what I'm supposed to have taken away from it. And I don't have an answer to that. But one of the things that I do think I realize is that if your house isn't perfectly clean, if you don't hand bake banana bread for the bake sale, if, the kids' closets aren't perfectly organized, world doesn't fall apart, and no one notices, and no one really cares. And that was a good realization for me, because I, prior to this, wanted to have so much control over everything. And I realized that sometimes giving up control and having other people help you, it's not a bad thing. And, it's an interesting mother lesson, I guess.
It sounds like that whole experience with getting that bug was pivotal for you.
Pivot. Yeah. Yes.
I mean, in some ways, you said you're still learning from it, but if it's at least made you question how you're spending your time and how you're using your spoons up, that's powerful for you, and the changes you probably made in your family life. Maybe not even consciously, but maybe on some other level, you're saying yes to some things and saying no to some things with a lot more ease.
Well, definitely, and I think the biggest thing for me now is I recognize that everyone has a journey that they're on, and you might not see what that journey is. You might not be able to see what that person's going through, and how important it is to just treat people with kindness, because you never know what they're going through.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have difficult times, like, you shared that you had a good friend that helped you get through that. You're juggling work, you've got a marriage. Is there anything that keeps you inspired on a daily basis? Like, do you have a favorite saying or quote or something funny that you look at?
Yes, it's funny. I had a friend visiting me from Singapore this weekend, and 20 years ago, maybe even more than that, he gave me a magnet that I have kept from that day. And the magnet says, "Go confidently in the direction of your dreams, live the life you imagined." And still to this day, I love that quote for so many reasons. I love the fact that life is about living with intention, and it's about really picturing and setting goals with your partner or by yourself about what you want your life to be, and I feel that at every stage, Sean and I have done that. Every year after Christmas, we sit down and say, what do we want to accomplish this year? Both personally and with our family. What are things we want to do now that the kids are at this age? A couple of years ago, we said our 10-year anniversary is coming up. How do we want to celebrate it? What do we want to do? And by setting those goals for ourselves, it really gives you so many reasons to celebrate, because you realize that you're reaching those milestones together. And for us, a number of years ago, we said, one of our goals is we want our family to be able to ski together. Well, your kids don't learn to ski on their own. It requires a lot of heavy lifting and a lot of nights at the ski hill and a lot of painful times, through not great weather to get your kids up to that point where they can learn to ski. And now, this winter, we just had such an amazing experience with all of us skiing, being able to ski every run across the hill and having those great moments on the chairlift and after in the base lodge. And it really made us realize that you have to think about what you want your life to look like in a few years. And then what do you need to do now to set that foundation with your kids and with your family?
Yeah, and I think you guys doing that, is the results prove it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you find this too with your boys. What do you want to do with them in 2 years and 4 years? And, if you want to be having those great discussions with them, then how do you start those relationships now and have those experiences?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think about it as much day to day now, but I know that when they were babies and when they were toddlers, I don't know if I read it somewhere or someone said something to me about, start with the end in mind, right? We know that saying for so many other reasons, but when it comes to parenting, there's so many practices that we engage in when they're little, right? Responding to them when they're hungry, answering their cries, nurturing them, developing those bonds and that closeness. And it's thankless for so many years. No one can see you, and you can as a mother, you can't even see what that is doing, right? All you know is that it's draining sometimes and it's exhausting to be the only one that can comfort your child. But what I can say now is, looking back, is the closeness that I have with my boys is because I met their needs early, because they know now that they can come and talk to me about things because I've been there in other ways. So, there's so many different parenting perspectives and styles, but I definitely set out back then. Absolutely. My goal was, what kind of relationship do I want to have with my boys when they're men?
Yes.
And if I want to have healthy adult relationships, I've got to make sure that I'm not, to this day now, I'm very careful about their trust and not betraying their trust. And, they take lots of photos, right? And if Max says, don't post this on Facebook, I can't post it. I'm not going to go behind his back and betray his trust. And it sounds like something silly, but it's a point there. And, you can't take those things back. So.
Yeah, it's true. There's a quote somewhere that I read too that said, pay attention today to the little things because these are the big things for them. And you have to pay attention to that and realize the importance to them, because then when they're 15 and 16 and you're realizing why they're not coming to you, it's because when they were younger and they wanted to come to you with big things, you weren't paying attention.
Absolutely. So. Now, you've talked a little bit about work and your struggle and, being able to balance things at times, which is something that every woman who's working outside their home deals with. Let's talk a bit more about your career.
Sure. Where should I start?
Well, so you, when you had Addison, you were working in the same field that you are now?
No. So when I had, well, yes, I had Addison, and then I actually took a job with the Canadian Football League in their head office as the director of marketing. So managing the national league-wide marketing platforms and working on all those initiatives across Canada. So it was quite a bit of a shock to go back to work into a job such as that. But such an opportunity that at the same time, I couldn't turn that down.
So what was shocking, because you went from the world of motherhood to the world of sports?
Well, I went to the world of being able to put in as many hours that you needed to put in to get a job done, to now working in a male dominated industry of professional sports in downtown Toronto, where with a a 1-year-old at home. And that definitely took some balancing and some getting used to. And also, I would say some work on behalf of educating a lot of the male colleagues that I worked with who weren't used to working with women with kids, and what that meant as well, for the fact that I had to leave at a certain time, and there was days where I worked at home so that I didn't feel that I was losing my mind, or the fact that if I was traveling, the few days after I got back from traveling, I was either not working or I was working from home so that I could be around a little bit more, and making sure that I set those parameters, especially when you're working with a lot of men who may not understand what it's like to be a full-time mom, or who don't have kids, or at a different stage in their life, or a different setup at home where they don't have to think about that as much. It's really about not feeling guilty or feeling that you are not supposed to be there, or feeling that you have something to prove, and really making sure you set those parameters, and working hard, but also making sure that people understand what you're capable of doing.
Do you feel that ultimately, as much as you love the work, that some of that is what prompted you to look for something different?
Well, I was with the CFL for 5 years, and the last year that I was there, I oversaw the national league-wide 100th Grey Cup celebrations, which was quite an aggressive and ambitious endeavor. I oversaw a 150-stop train tour across Canada, which took 10 weeks. And simultaneously, we're also launching a national league-wide cause marketing platform for women's cancers, which was CFL Pink, and all of these different programs. And while I was at the league, I had the opportunity to do some pretty amazing things. But there came a time after 5 years that I said, I don't think I can continue to keep commuting to downtown Toronto. I need to find something closer. And I was also ready to make a change to something where I felt that I could continue to make a contribution in a meaningful way. And I felt almost at the point where I'd given it everything that I could give it.
That sounds healthy. It sounds like you had to evaluate not only where you're at professionally, but as your family needs were changing.
Yes, and I think that's important too, is that as a working mother, if there's things that aren't working for you, you have to try to figure out how to make it work. And for me, I knew that I wanted to keep working. I really like working. I really enjoy being creative. I enjoy the challenge and stimulus of being in the working environment. And so when I started looking for a new position, a new opportunity, the opportunity that came available was to start my own practice area at a creative agency. I knew it wasn't going to be easy. It wasn't as if I was taking a step back in the working world by any means, but the location of the office, the fact that a lot of the leadership team at this agency was women, I felt that was inspiring. I knew it was going to be a great environment. And I also knew that being closer would allow me the flexibility I needed to be able to, attend certain school events that just wasn't possible when I worked downtown.
Mm-hmm. It's tough for most women to find those kind of harmonious relationships with flexibility.
And don't get me wrong, it's always a balance, right? And I always think about the fact that being a full-time working mom in a very busy job like I'm in that has client demands, I don't get to control my schedule. A lot of times clients often put parameters that are very difficult to navigate, but for me, I always feel that have a stove or in front of me of 10 different pots. And my job is just to make sure none of them boil over. And so some of them sometimes get close to boiling, and then you have to reallocate your responsibilities and reallocate your priorities and try to move things around. And it's a balancing act. And
just like in days in the home with your kids and your husband, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's all a balancing act. And Sean, I would say back to your earlier question about Sean and I and our relationship, there's times where we stop and say, okay, we need to reconnect. Like things are getting a little bit busy in these other parts of our life, and now it's time for us to pull back to each other and make sure that we're connecting with each other.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the other things that you do? Not so much to stay connected with Sean, but you talked about you both having active pursuits. You like to be fitness, you like to be outdoors. What about things that just for you? Like, do you have time to just be Shannon and do things that make you happy?
Oh, definitely. Well, that time has to happen very early in the morning for it to happen. But so I get up every morning at 5:30 and I run or I bike or I swim or I work out. I have a gym in my basement at my house. And for me, that's really my time. And does it happen at a convenient time? No. Do I always want to be getting up at 5:30 in the morning? No, but it really works for our family at this point right now. And it's a great way to start the day for me. It allows me that time that I need to let out a little bit of energy and adrenaline and help me focus my mind. So that's important for me too. And then I always make time on the weekend to go swim or, do a class at the gym or something like that. Or we do something physically active as a family, or Sean and I do triathlons. So that's a good goal that I work towards to make sure that I'm making sure that fitness is a priority, because I know I have races. So I have to keep focused on making sure that I train so that I don't make a fool of myself when I do those.
So fitness seems like a big priority for you. What about, do you incorporate any other lifestyle tips as far as, nutrition or sleep or meditation or any other practices that help you perform your best, whether you're with the kids or whether you're at work?
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, I would say sleep is another one that I've definitely put a priority on in the last couple of years, especially as I was getting better from when I was sick. Sleep was something that I looked at as being optional for many years. It did. I've just pushed through it, and now I'm very disciplined about making sure that I get sleep, because I know that I'm at my best when I can think clearly and get a good night's sleep. I also this is a very practical tip, but I started using a meditation app about a year and a half ago called Headspace. And it's an app you can download off of iTunes. And there's a free application, and then you can subscribe after that. And by no means am I tied to this app. I'm not
sponsorship too.
It's for people who want to meditate because they know it would be good for them, but perhaps are a little bit
busy,
high strung like me, or have a hard time focusing on meditating because you start thinking about all the things you need to do. Mm-hmm. And it's a really fabulous way to end your day. And I find that that's something that I go to often. If I get upstairs into my room and I'm realizing that my head's still spinning a little bit, I'll put one of these 10-minute meditations on, and it's a fabulous way to just stay focused.
Fantastic. It sounds like there's lots of great things that you're doing in your life to keep you physically and emotionally healthy.
Yes. And I would say like food, we eat very, very healthy, partially by choice and partially because my son has a sugar allergy. So everything in our family has to be made from scratch and not produced. And so that we eat very, very healthy. And food's a big important thing for me too, is just making sure that you get the right nourishment. And I think the healthier that we eat as a family and the more we share meals together also keeps us balanced and keeps our family connected with each other.
We've talked a little bit about your sickness after traveling, being, a shift for you and a lot of perspective. Would you say there have been any specific moments that have impacted you as a woman that then impact who you are as a mother? Like anything really that stands out for you as far as when you realized that you wanted to be a certain kind of mother, or that you wanted to learn a little bit more about parenthood? Like, did you have any moments that really shaped who you are as a mother?
Oh, it's interesting you say this. I have a part-time nanny right now that's working with us, and she just graduated from university, and she asked me a very similar question. And I said, the most defining moment for me was the moment that I decided not to jump into taking a full-time job after university, but instead going traveling for a year. And I went and traveled all of Europe, Eastern Europe, Turkey, Greece, Italy, and then I went down and did Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras. Most of it by myself, some parts of it connecting with other friends. And that for me was a really defining moment for me as a person. One, because I did it by myself. And second of all, because I got to see so much of how the rest of the world lives and breathes and exists, and all of the fun cultural stuff that you get when you go to all of those countries. And I guess the way that it's shaped me as a mother is that I trust myself. I trust that if I'm in situations, I can figure it out. And I feel excited that I've been able to share those adventures with my kids, and right away inspired in them that they can do all of those things. They don't need to be afraid, and they can really define their life for what they want it to be.
Wow, that's fantastic. Do you still get to travel with the kids now, or that just, is it something that, you and Sean just went on a holiday recently, but do you incorporate travel into your lifestyle quite a bit with them?
If you consider travel coming from the city up to Burlington, then yes, we do a lot of traveling. From the city up to Collingwood, yes, we do a lot of traveling.
Yeah.
No. But yeah, definitely we've done a lot. We've done a number of road trips. We took the kids to Boston 2 years ago, and that was really fun. And as the kids get older, it gets easier. It's definitely easier to travel with kids when you don't have to worry about strollers and diapers and all of those things. And it was a really exciting moment for us last summer when we did go to Boston, that we didn't have to think about all of those things. We've done a lot of vacations within Canada and the United States. Have we done with them a big trip that Sean used to do and I used to do before we had kids? No, we haven't done one of those yet, but it's definitely in the works.
It's one of your goals.
Yes.
Down the road.
Yeah, definitely. We've already started thinking about where it could be and what that would look like. But up until this point, we've been relatively safe with them about what experiences we've given them when it comes to travel, just because, your kids are young, and it's more about the Disneys and the Floridas and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Has motherhood been what you thought it would be?
It's interesting because I think Sean and I realized that over the last year, we've really moved into a new stage of parenting. This stage where you get to do cool things with your kids and have really cool experiences and teach them and see them learn on their own. And what I don't think we were really expecting was how much fun you can have with your kids, and how much enjoyment you can get doing things as a family. How amazing it is to be on the chairlift and see your kids skiing. And, just this past weekend, we did our first 5K run as a family, and how fun that was to do that together. And so I think for a while we were getting sad because our kids were definitely not babies anymore. And now all of a sudden we have this renewed energy for what the future looks like, knowing that the best is still yet to come.
Well said. I would agree 100%. I think that a lot of parents, when I talk to them in the practice, young families, and I just say it's different as your children grow. Sometimes you long for them to be babies, or you miss those days, or there's some nostalgia there, but it's pretty cool to see them grow and experience new things and become these amazing people. And I think all the different stages are just different, and you find joy in all of them. And just like you've grown with your partner for 10 years, you're going to grow with your kids and love them more 10 years later than you did the moment you met them, if that's possible, right? You don't think it's possible when you have your first baby to think you're going to love anything any more than you do, but it's absolutely, it just grows with time, and it just evolves.
Right. And it's interesting how, I guess I've seen it in Addison over the last couple of years, that I can have really neat conversations with her now. She's a little person, and she has opinions and really interesting perspectives on things. And for a while I was getting sad. Oh my goodness, my kids are growing up so quickly. And now it's with every stage of development, there's this new little stage that you get to explore the world and see it through their perspective. And that's really fun.
So if you were to look back, Shannon, and give yourself advice, right? If there's anything that you would have done differently, do you have any tips for moms who are, just starting out? They've got young babies. They're exactly where you were, 8 years ago with Addison.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because there's been many times over the last number of years that I've talked to young women who come back to work and they inevitably get to this point where they realize they can't just put in the same number of hours, and they need some working mom hacks. So I've come up with some working mom hacks. So let's see if I can remember what they are. Okay, number one, put your kids to bed in the clothes that they'll wear to school the next day. So bathe your kids and then put them in their clothes, because what do they do in bed? Nothing. They're clean. So then it takes out a step in the morning, especially when you have toddlers. This is a very valuable tip. You do not have to fight with them. They're already in their clothes.
Yeah,
Right?
there's no negotiating with toddlers.
No negotiating. Also works well with little girls who decide that they want to wear different things in the morning after you've made that decision. Okay, number two, breakfast for dinner. Do not feel that you have to do a massive dinner every single night, like, perhaps your mother did, or you have other friends who have more time that can create roast beef dinners every day. Eggs, pancakes, all these things. Sometimes you have to do it, right?
And kids won't know the difference, and they will often have a lot of fun, with it too.
And it's still healthy, and you can, do a lot of options there. Three, oh yes, outsource everything. But like, look for other people. There's lots of other stay-at-home moms who can do things to help you. Baking, I've outsourced my ironing before when it got overwhelming. Grocery Gateway, ordering clothes, Gap, Old Navy, you get free returns. Figure out how you can save time by getting those things set up and delivered to your door. Clearly contacts. There's so many awesome ways to leverage technology to have things sent right to your doorstep so you don't have to deal with them.
So you can either focus on work or taking care of yourself or being with your kids.
Right. So then outsource all that stuff, and then you don't have to worry about going to a mall and spending a whole day doing that stuff. Just get it sent to your house. All right. 5, next size bin. This is key. When you buy your kids clothes, buy also next sizes when you see them. This is specifically important for shoes, because there will be a day where you're going to work and your kid literally will not be able to fit their feet into their shoes. And you don't even have to stress. You just walk upstairs and get another pair of shoes out. It's fine. You've got it covered. The gift bin. So when I'm out and I see random things that I think kids will like and I'm buying them, I purchase them and keep them downstairs for last minute birthday party invites, which inevitably will happen because your children will put them in their backpack, and then all of a sudden you clean out their backpack and realize there's a birthday party tomorrow.
And you have no time to go buy a gift. And
yeah. Then it's there. It's done, right? It's good. I would also say, buy a big box of blank cards and keep them with you at your office, because inevitably there will be a lot of people that you'll often have to say thank you to for helping do random things, and thank you cards are a good way to do that. So those are my tips. I'm sure there's more, but those are the top ones I can think of right now. Oh, be a juice box mom. This is my last one. So we put so much pressure on ourselves as moms to be the Pinterest moms and make the Cookie Monster cupcakes with the real cookies in the mouth. And really our kids don't care and they don't notice, and it's not important. And so, when you get stuck having to do a potluck, just bring the juice boxes. Take the pressure off yourself.
Sign up for the least demanding task sometimes.
Yes.
I think what you've just shared is really valuable because, like you said, so many moms put so much pressure on themselves, and it's the moments with your kid and the attention that you give to your children and being present with them that counts for so much more than all those other, all that other minutia that still clutters up our days sometimes.
Yes. And if you have kids that are playing any type of sport, you are now required to bring snack at some point. And I spent all this time making these grape cheese kebabs, and my son was disappointed because I didn't bring bear paws. So there you go, right? Your kids don't care.
No, and I love that you said, be willing to ask for help, and sure. I mean, there's plenty of people who love to bake, and you could swap with them. You can say, look, I'll pay you for your dozen homemade cookies, and that'll make your life easier. And it still allows you to feel like you're giving your kids something healthy and good that, helps someone else out too.
Yes. And there's lots of services too that help with pre-made meals and things like that you can throw in your freezer. So if there are nights that you're running behind or you've got to run out the door to something else, it's there for you. Learn how to outsource things. because that's really what helps me feel like I have control over my life now. I order my groceries online. I order the kids' clothes online. I have people who clean my house. I have a part-time nanny who comes to the house early and does laundry and unloads the dishwasher. I have all these, like this group of people and businesses that help do things so that I can spend more time with my kids and focus on what I'm good at, and get that sort of mundane work out of the way so I don't have to think about it. I wish that I had figured that out earlier, so that I wasn't stressing all the time about, oh my gosh, how am I going to fit grocery shopping in, and how am I going to do this, and how am I going to do that? But less tactical, I would say, just be kind to yourself. Go easy on yourself. No one is putting as much pressure on you as you are. And, so just be a little bit easier on yourself.
Thank you so much for sharing that, those wise words, and everything else that you shared with us today on the show.
Great. Well, thanks so much for having me. It's super fun.
Yeah. Have a great rest of the day, Shannon, and we'll catch up soon.
Thanks so much.
There you have it, a great story today from a mom who rocks. I hope you enjoyed today's show. Be sure to head on over to iTunes and subscribe to the podcast so that you don't miss out on any future episodes. When you do that, I'll be sending you a copy of my top 10 tips for moms. These are some of my personal practical strategies I believe that as women we can all benefit from and help us be emotionally and physically as healthy as we can be. When you're also there on iTunes, I would also love it if you left a review. It's really important to leave some reviews because that helps other people find the podcast, and it helps inspire them to listen and potentially gain some insight from the podcast. Tell other moms that you know would benefit from this show, or most certainly nominate them and let me know who you think I should be interviewing. I'd love for you to connect with us on Facebook as well. Head on over to Everyday Rockstar Mom and join our community there. Thanks so much for joining us today. We'll see you next time.